Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Zach, and I am just here going to review Marvel Avengers Endgame. Now, it's been a couple days that I have seen it because, actually Monday was when I seen it, and the reason why I did not review it then, even though that my reaction would have been fresh, and so would have my memory, but it was getting late, and yesterday I was busy, so I did not really have the time or energy to do the review, so I decided, and today I'm busy, so I decided just to do it in the car instead. But yeah, Marvel Avengers Endgame. Now, I will warn that there will be some spoilers in this review right here, so y'all who are like sensitive about spoilers, don't castrate me over it. I mean, you've had your warning. At this point, it is your fault if you continue on with this video. So yeah, probably won't even have a non-spoiler section because it's hard for this kind of movie right here. But yeah, before I get onto the pros and cons of this movie, I just want to say that Captain Marvel did not ruin Endgame. A lot of people were paranoid about how Captain Marvel would have ruined Avengers Endgame and how it possibly would have done bad in public opinion and the ratings and whatnot. But as far as I know, not hardly anybody, I mean, especially not myself, but not hardly anyone, even the most passionate of anti-SJWs or whatever, are going after it. Well, except maybe No Bullshit will eventually be all like SJW moments in Marvel's Endgame, in Avengers Endgame, just like he did with Avengers Infinity War, when really it just turned out to be a whole bunch of pedantic and petulant nitpicks that did not really amount to a hill of beans at all. That doesn't really ruin the freaking literature or anything, the actual movie itself. Like, whatever that No BS wanted to point out was nothing that ruined the movie. The only thing that was ruining the movie right then was him. And he'll probably do the same with Endgame. But yes, so Captain Marvel did not ruin it, so that is a giant plus for all of us who are worried about that. And if any of y'all saw my Captain Marvel review, I just thought that was pretty meh, pretty forgetful. Not outright bad, at least in my opinion, but it was bad enough to be fairly forgetful, I would say. But yeah, here in Avengers Endgame, so some of the cons. For one, I don't think it made much sense, or at least to me anyways, that Captain America, when he was able to pick up Mjolnir, like that was an exciting moment when he was able to pick up Mjolnir. Like, I was thinking, oh, bad fucking ass. He's just wielding both his shield and Mjolnir, the hammer, at Thanos as he's fighting him off. Now, it would make sense to me of how Captain America, in all eventuality, became fully worthy of Mjolnir to where that he can like pick it up and swing it efficiently. But it doesn't really make sense to me as to how he would be able to wield lightning through it. Because, I mean, if we look back at Thor Ragnarok for one thing, the hammer was not the source of Thor's lightning power. The hammer was only meant to help him channel his lightning and thunder power. He already had the lightning power, he just naturally has it in his own being. It's just that the hammer originally helped him out with it. But Captain America, as far as we know, he's 100% human, although he's of course got the super soldier serum, so there's that as well. But I do not think that the super soldier serum would have given him the essence of lightning, so therefore it, in all honesty, doesn't really make that much sense to me as to how Captain America would be able to wield lightning with Mjolnir, now that I really think about it. I mean, it was a great spectacle, in all honesty, and since we're on about great spectacles, it was a great spectacle as well that Captain Marvel, talking about the captains here, Captain Marvel did go destroying Thanos' ship. Maybe just a little bit, it was done a little bit too quickly, but it kind of roots back to Captain Marvel. So, but I'm not gonna go on a tangent about that here. Further cons. There was plenty of plot holes as far as the time traveling goes. Lots of time traveling in this movie. That's kind of what I liked about this movie, is that it did a lot of time traveling. Something that wasn't really done a whole lot in any of the other past MCU movies. I mean, it was kind of touched upon in Ant-Man, but they actually fully engaged in it in this movie, so that was neat. But of course, when you go for plot holes, there's always when you always go for time traveling, there's always the opening for plot holes, is the thing. And one of the first plot holes, for example, that I can think of is when Thor, when he goes in the past, he summons his own hammer from the past. Let's keep in mind here, folks, that in 2019, or I guess 2024, it would have been of when that Thor had gotten all fat, which I'll have my own commentary on that, by the way. But in 2024, let's keep in mind that Mjolnir was destroyed. So of course Thor did not have Mjolnir presently available. But in the past, at the moment that he goes traveling back in time, is basically back at the time of Thor: The Dark World. And if we remember, Mjolnir was not destroyed just yet, so he goes back to that time period. The 2024 Thor goes back to that time period, and he summons his own freaking hammer to him, and he travels with it as well. That's a big plot hole. I mean, does that mean that Thor never really had his hammer? I mean, he would be making it so that he never had his hammer at all available during the rest of the movie, The Dark World, and throughout the beginning of Ragnarok. Near the beginning of Ragnarok, of course, Mjolnir is destroyed, but he also had Mjolnir when he was fighting the big lava giant guy. I cannot remember what his name was, but he's the guy that brings about Ragnarok. But yeah, he had it available for then. He had it available for The Dark World, and here's another thing. He also had it available in Age of Ultron, if I remember correctly. So, or at least that's when he had Mjolnir, in the time period between the Dark World and the presumed moment in the Dark World that 2024 Thor goes traveling back, and Thor Ragnarok. That was all the time. So, when you go to think about it, he took his own hammer. He stole his own hammer from his own past self. That would have meant that past Thor would not have had it available. That Thor would have never had it at all in those moments. And so therefore, he probably would have died, in fact. If he did not have Mjolnir with him when he was fighting the lava or fire giant or whatever, then he would have probably died. So that is a big plot hole right there. And there's of course a few others, but I cannot really think of them right off the top of my head, and plus I meandered on that a little bit too long. But those are only really the two biggest flaws for me that I can think of right off the top of my head. But getting into pros, the action kicks ass. There is a big slow period towards roughly the beginning, and also throughout good portions of the middle, but overall the action was great. It wasn't as good as Infinity War, it wasn't as much prevalent as in Infinity War, but yeah, it's neither here nor there. I actually thought Endgame was better than Infinity War. Some other people think that Infinity War was better than Endgame. That's understandable to me. They're both great movies, but I still overall think Endgame is better than Infinity War. But yeah, for example of what the action was like, you have Captain America fighting his own past self. That was pretty badass. You have all the hand-to-hand combat that Thanos was doing with pretty much all of the Avengers, actually, going towards the end. Even with Captain Marvel. I was thinking almost for a second there that they were going to, I don't know, maybe pull a Mary Sue with Captain Marvel and have her kill Thanos, but ultimately they don't have her kill Thanos. It's freaking Iron Man, ultimately. But, instead, Thanos grabs an individual Infinity Stone and he punches Captain Marvel with that Infinity Stone powered fist of his. The one that is holding the one Infinity Stone. And now I thought that was, I was all like, oh shit, when he just punched Captain Marvel right in the face with that Infinity Stone powered fist. That was cool. And of course, Scarlet, I gotta mention Scarlet here for a second. She's, I gotta say, improved on her hand-to-hand combat. Like, in Infinity War and beforehand, she wasn't all that strong in hand-to-hand combat. Let's be honest, she was more of a telekinesis power wielder than anything else. But as far as I could tell, the only person that she fights really one-on-one is Thanos throughout all of Endgame. And in that moment that she is fighting Thanos, she really held her own, honestly. And she would have damn near killed Thanos if he had not summoned his own ship to rain hellfire on all the Avengers and whatnot. Just have the guns blazing and whatnot from his own ship. If he hadn't called for that, she would have been the one to kill him. Oh, and also I got to mention that the reason why I'm glad that Captain Marvel wasn't the one who killed Thanos, which I think everyone can agree with this on, is because there wasn't a whole lot of one-on-one character development with between Captain Marvel and Thanos. I mean, the most it gets is that he snapped away Nick Fury. That's it. But aside from that, there is not much motivation for Captain Marvel to kill Thanos. So it makes more sense cinematically as to why someone else with a whole lot more motivation to kill Thanos would ultimately kill Thanos. Like even Scarlet Witch, it makes more sense because she was forced to kill kill Vision. She was forced to kill Vision herself, and then it all was for nothing as Thanos was the one then to ultimately kill Vision. Yeah, so there is that. It's not like Nick Fury was like permanently killed or anything like that. Besides that, but ultimately Iron Man was the one to kill Thanos, of course. And it makes a whole lot of sense because ever since the first Avengers, Thanos has been tormenting Tony. He has been paranoid about the possibility of him destroying the world, of Thanos destroying the world. Like Tony, he just has all this weight bearing down on him. And there is one point when Tony has himself a family. Oh man, there's so much to go over in this movie. Like Tony, he gets a family. I thought that was a very nice bittersweet moment. He gets his happy moment. And then ultimately he dies, but he still had his happy moment while he was around. And the fact that he dies is a nice bittersweet that really touches the heart. And, oh man, so much to talk about. But yeah, I guess I should just wrap up this review. But pros are the relationship between Tony and his wife, the making up of Tony and Captain America, of course. Captain America ultimately getting a bittersweet end himself, as when he goes traveling back in time in the end of the movie, he decides, no, screw it. I've put away all these Infinity Stones of where they need to be, and so I'm just going to stay in the World War II era where I had left off in my life and stay with Peggy Carter. And so he does. And he ends up growing old as flash forward to present day, where the rest of the Avengers are at. He ultimately grows old from the point of World War II to then. And that made me balled up more than Tony's death, in all honesty. Knowing that he finally, a man lost in time, gets his happy moment. Thanos wasn't quite as good as he was in Infinity War, I would say. Like, there wasn't as much character development and everything with his own character. Of course, there isn't as much focus around Thanos. That's another thing that I have to omit as well. I like the fact that Endgame focused more on Captain America than Infinity War did, because Infinity War kind of shunned him aside. But in Endgame, they kind of pull Thanos to the sidelines just a little bit. So there is that. But it wasn't a big deal breaker for me. Thor, when he gains weight, there is the point at the beginning when they kill the 2019 Thanos, and then fast forward, everybody is just trying to recuperate from knowing that half of the universe's population is gone. All the people that they know and love are gone. And the way that Thor recuperates, honestly, is trying to live the happy life by drinking away his sorrows. Essentially, his own kind of retirement. But he ends up gaining weight, as it is found out. And that's... I thought that was pretty funny. Like, it was a nice... because you know of how all the girls, they like to fawn over Thor, and of, oh, he's so dreamy, he's so cut and worked out and whatnot. It was just, but the fact that they show him to have gained weight, that was honestly funny. It was kind of like it was kind of a playful middle finger to all the girls on that area. it was really funny. The action scene going towards the end between Thanos and Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man was real great. I mean, all of these characters, damn, they have such good interactions with Thanos. I mean, Captain America did not, let's be honest, he did not have a whole lot of one-on-one interactions with him, so I'm glad that he wasn't the one to have killed Thanos, and instead it was Tony Stark who ended up doing it. And by the way, he uses the Infinity Stones. Ultimately, Tony, he ends up wielding the Infinity Stones, like steals them, rips them off of Thanos's Infinity, or his new Infinity Gauntlet that he gets anyways, rips them off, and Tony ultimately ends up wielding them, and he snaps away Thanos and the rest of his army. The rest of his army. But yeah, acting was good. I liked Nebula in this one. Like, they focus a lot on Nebula. The only downside, actually, here's another con, is that they did not have her kick as much. They did not have her kick ass. Like, you have a freaking cyborg in your movie, and she isn't engaged in a whole lot of action in it. That kind of sucked, and honestly, the most that when it comes to action, I guess you could say, is when she goes like reaching her robotic hand through the little shield thing. Like back in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's like a shield that Star-Lord has to get through to wield one of the Infinity Stones to try to steal it, smuggle it. But the way that Nebula does it is that she just reaches her robotic hand in as it's burning and whatnot. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's badass. She manages to grab the Infinity Stone despite her hand being all singed and whatnot. And she doesn't even blink. At that moment. I just like all the other moments. Like, essentially, Nebula is kind of like Loki, in that she was once a bad guy, just like Loki was, and then she develops to be a good guy. Like, those are some of the better characters, in my opinion, when it comes to character development. A person who was originally a villain, like just evil, megalomaniacal, I'm out to kill you type of villain, and then ultimately they become your friend and one of the good guys, really. That's kind of the arc that they had with Loki, and that's the same arc that they had with Nebula. I like that. I really did, a lot. What are some other good things? Thor, he ends up like going with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and honestly, I kind of expected that from the very start. I kind of thought that ever since Infinity War that was what they were going to do. And he's probably going to end up being in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 once they release that. What else? Oh, man. there's too much in this movie. There's so much good things. I'm just going to wrap up this review because there's so much that I could talk about, but I have been rambling way too much. So, cons are Captain America wielding lightning. Doesn't really make sense. Nebula not involved enough in the action. And plot holes with the time travel. That's really about it. Pros, the stale Captain Marvel is not that much involved in it, and when she is involved in it, it isn't that much of a ruiner, really. It isn't that much of a downer. The action really kicked ass. All of the character dynamics that happen in this movie, and the acting is good. The funeral for Tony Stark and his death, the way that he dies and whatnot, and the Captain America ultimately getting his happy ending. Oh, and also Tony Stark interacting with his dad in the past. I thought that was cheesily entertaining. At the same time, was a somber moment as well. Oh, I will at least mention this one moment. I really liked it, like going towards the end when Thanos, he thinks that he has the stones in his hand and he says, "I am inevitable." Turns out he did not have the stones. Oops. And then actually Tony had ripped them off of Thanos and he says, "I am Iron Man." And then he kills Thanos. That was so badass. That gave everyone chills. Like, sheesh. Yeah. Oh, and also I liked Hulk becoming a Professor Hulk, and just it was a nice bit of lighthearted comedy, I guess you could say. But yeah, go see this movie if you haven't. Like, don't let Captain Marvel ruin it for you. That's all I'm gonna say. See you all later. Bye bye.